please, declaration for signing, MERS, principles in organizations with authorization. Please visit the declaration and sign the Gaziantep Declaration, and you will be one of the founding signatories as it goes to the Global Refugee Forum in Geneva. So it's the last time you'll hear me ask today, but that's a real request. And great news from UCLG Maywa. They have created, they're in the process of creating a global task force for migration as part of their social inclusion committee, and they're looking for members. So again, same process. You can sign up, introduce yourself to UCL, some of the members of the UCLG family, and that is a new global task force to implement the Gaziantep Declaration. Is that a correct capture, Leontine? Okay, so that's a direct pledge out of here. Anyone who's going on the Mosaics tour will have signed up, so I don't need to cover that. Our gala dinner, 18:30 to 1900 are the buses, so let's be ready, special night. Last couple of things. I was told not to do this now, but I will, and then I'll repeat it in the morning. Everyone has this pack. Either take it home, or look at it, or take it home and look at it, but look at it at some point. It's a really, really succinct collation of all the different co-hosting organizations, so we know who's been in this ecosystem, and you can follow up afterwards. And I think that's it for housekeeping. It's not quite. This is intriguing for an Anglo-Saxon of Irish origins, but this beautiful glass product, I've been told by UNDP, is the result of one of their projects, and it's a cooperation, a collaboration between Turkish women and Syrian women, and all the glass products outside, there are some on display now, and any of you who received gifts, this is an example. And we'd encourage you to have a look at the glass products. The good news is the project is self-sustaining. So that means it's standing on its own 2 feet, and it's a very clear and direct example of collaboration. And without any further ado, I would like to invite Maria Ramos to the stage. Again, big round of applause. She's done an incredible job, Maria, over the course of today. And Maria will, from TRT World, will moderate the final plenary session, the second Mayoral Panel, focused on city networks and cooperation, how to replicate and scale success stories in local responses. So thank you for being with us. I will leave you for the day, I believe. See you at the dinner. Maria, the floor is yours. All the best.
Thank you so much, Paul. See you at the dinner.
Thank you.
And everybody, thank you so much for being here. I know it's late. Look, I always say I'm a runner, and when you see that finishing line and you're nearly at the end, it is so hard. But just think, the finishing line is near, and as my Turkish colleagues tell me, uyumak yok, don't sleep, okay? So I would now like to call up my amazing panelists, and first of all, let me not drop my names, the mayor of the city of Sombor in Serbia, Dušanka Golubović. Please make your way here. Hello, pleased to see you. Nice to see you, fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, my next guest is Dalia, Rosa, Delgado, Burbano, a name I can say very well. Pleased to meet you again. We've been speaking a lot. Obviously, we speak the same language. And next, I would like, it's better if I get up, Rouba, Mhaissen. I hope that is correctly pronounced, your surname. Fantastic, thank you so much. And a mayor of Istanbul, Hüseyin, Keskin, mayor of Sultanbeyli, Istanbul. My home, Istanbul. Welcome. Welcome everybody. Okay, and I believe That is it. That is my lineup. Short and sweet. Perfect. Okay. I'd like to just very quickly for all of you to welcome them all again. All four, thank you so much for being here. Now, what we are going to talk about is we're going to look at the best city examples worldwide, how they can be replicated. Putting it in a very easy way, what can Serbia learn from Colombia, also from Venezuela, if we think about it? What can, I would say which country would you be representing? Would be both Syria and Lebanon in a way, right? What can Lebanon learn from Serbia, from Colombia, and from Istanbul? Okay, we're all here to share. And that's the question, how? And also where? Where are the really good examples of things that work? Where are the really good examples of things that work? And can we actually do it? Can we actually roll these examples out? So these are the themes that we're going to be looking at on this panel. Now, I want you all to be part of the conversation. I know it's late, but we need energy, guys. So please look at the app for any questions, or during the Q&A session, we will please be ready with some questions. All right. Now, and please tweet. I love social media. I want to see this hashtag flowing. Hashtag Municipal Forum 2019 or Belediye Forumu 2019 on Twitter or Instagram, whatever you feel like. All right. Now, the format, short and sweet. We're going to hear a few words from our panelists, and then we'll have our discussion, and then we'll open the floor up to you guys. All right. First of all, Mayor from Serbia, the floor is yours. Please tell us about your experience.
Zahvaljujem se, dobar dan svima. Veliko mi je zadovoljstvo što smo danas ovde na jednu ovako značajnu temu za lokalne samouprave, kao što je pitanje migracija. Pretpostavljam da znate, a mislim da je u uvodnom delu pomenuto da je...
Important issues that we will be discussing in Serbia. Serbia is a transit country, and so far 1.5 million refugees passed through Serbia. Therefore, it is very important for us. And here, the biggest question is these best practices and how we can adopt and use these best practices. For a long period of time, for many years, Serbia had problems about migration issues and migrants, and that influx of waves of migrants, how we can address it. After the 90s and the wars in 1990s, we have a heritage of migration in this region. And large influx of migration was from Bosnia-Herzegovina, from Croatia, from other Balkan countries. We had migrants, and we faced this migration issue. And we have developed a number of models, and we have an institutional perspective to these models. Of course, the local governments, the municipalities, has a very critical role in these models. We have consultancy centers, advisory centers, and they have a local body, these consultancy centers, and those waves of migration is coordinated by these local advisory units. It begins from the police department and from enterprises, business enterprises, and social organizations included. And of course, mayor is the leading figure. In addition to these bodies and these organs of the body, we have a separate department at the municipality, and that department specifically addresses the migrants and the waves of migration. They determine the migrants and the challenges related to migration. They create solutions to the challenges related to migration. Therefore, city of Sombor, we have these problems from Croatia and from Bosnia-Herzegovina. We accepted migrants from these two countries, and we provided services and solutions to them. And still, after so many years, we have we are using same or similar principles and models for integrating these migrants and refugees to our host community. We have a new challenge here. My colleague, as my colleague stated, open Balkan road. We have an open Balkan road. Those coming from east and passing through our country. There are a large number of population of migrants passing through Serbia, coming from east to west. They don't want to settle in Serbia. They don't want to stay in Serbia. They pass through Serbia and they want to head to Europe. And as a transit country, or as a final country, destination country, as providing security, protection, education, health services are needed. And of course, different groups come. Although they are the members of the same nationality, they come with different perspectives. And these incoming refugees need a safe space, safe environment in the first place. And we have a problem about it. We have 17 centers, refugee centers, migrant centers, and that's how we solved the accommodation problem with these 17 centers. Sombor city has a special refugee center. You can see on the visual on the screen. And families stay at this center, accommodation center. It's 40% families. And the largest part are children, wife, husband, spouses, and children. All local and regional government together, we have organized these centers. It's not just survival, but we tried our best to provide a social life. We have kitchens and parks and sports activities. And we have projects with different organizations. We have constructed schools and classrooms. We are providing language courses, computer literacy courses, IT courses. Our center gives these trainings. At Sombor, there we have a wonderful forest, and it is a very special, unique location. It's close to the city, but it's not at the heart of the city. And all that space, all that region, land is allocated only for that purpose, for this refugee center. We have conducted a couple of projects there. We have constructed a soccer pitch, a basketball ground, a fitness parks, and so that refugees don't just accommodate there, but they can do something fruitful. And the institutions and the organizations are helping us. Cursed the institution helped us a lot. They made huge donations, large amount of donations, and all institutions and organizations helped us. We could not make it possible on our own, and by sharing this model, we try our best to make a contribution. And of course, we have good cooperation among municipalities and a good coordination. Therefore, thanks to this coordination and cooperation, we could address these challenges, because if you don't have coordination among municipalities, it would be more challenging conditions. Here, each sector, there is room for improvement in each sector, and we can develop more projects. The person that you see on the screen, this girl, is a very skillful refugee or migrant, and she creates a very positive perception among the refugees, and the xenophobia or the fright for refugees is eliminated by this positive perception. The host community accepts the refugees, and those refugees are not considered just as refugees, but they attach a unique value to these people, new-coming people. It's one of the best practices is this one. And some refugees come alone, on their own, without any unaccompanied. And also we have some risky, some hazardous refugees, and they should be prevented, risky refugees. You should have a sound assessment of risk profile of these refugees. For both local and regional, you need a good practice for assessment of risks about refugees, because the municipalities here and all other organizations should share their experiences, and so that we have trust, we have a sound trust among us by sharing experiences. For instance, some refugees have general needs, but they might have specific needs too. And one of the first components, most critical elements, is security and safety. That's why they are refugees, because of lack of safety and security. They come to our countries and they are planning to go to Europe from Serbia. Therefore, in our country, we don't want any troubles in our lands, and we would like to prevent it. Preventing the problems is easier than coping with the results. We want to prevent the problems at the very beginning. We have some examples. We are an open society, and of course, everyone has the right to migrate and to travel and to seek asylum. They can go and stay. What matters is to provide safety and security. Thank you very much.
Open Balkan Road, and to see that temporary, and yet you have to give these services to people that aren't there for a long time at all. And it's really lovely to see the pictures, the forest, everything that you were talking about, to see it depicted on screen. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now we're going to go to a different part of the world completely. An area that we were talking about a lot in the news, Colombia, Venezuela, and to hear from, I think you are, two people have come from very far away. We had Australia and Colombia, but I'm sure both of you really are, as our panelists, have come very far away. Dalia, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Hello. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today to share this experience and look at the world and look at the international relations and this process from different perspectives. Is very important, and we are going to be focusing on the migration issues. In terms of explaining the context, I would like to show you some statistics and numbers from my presentation. Here you can see some of the parts that our project took place in, and we call it the border of opportunities. And you can see we have the first area in the port region near Venezuela, and we have 5 different entrance points, and throughout this border we have some other illegal entrance points as well. Some people, of course, try to go across the border through these illegal channels. And there are some problems not only regarding the refugees or people coming through the border. There are also some groups that are weaponized and creating in this bridge called Coleva. It is the biggest bridge between Venezuela and Colombia, and there are some conflicts there, armed conflicts going on in this region, and there are also some illegal trades and trafficking, and not only drugs but also, oil trafficking and etc. Colombia has a three-level governance system: municipal, central, and regional. So the power lies mainly in the central government, but the crises are basically under the responsibility of the local governments, and they have the resources and they manage the resources on a more local level. And of course, they can use the resources to address the problems in these smaller populations. And we are now completing the 3 years of the agreement, the peace agreement for the last 3 years. Now we are in the implementation process. And there are 1.4 million Venezuelans in Colombia. Half of them are documented and the other half are illegal, meaning they don't have the documentation. In Aguajira region, there are 8% of them are living in this region, and these figures are global figures, but there is also a flowing population there, meaning they are coming and going every day, and they are in need of education and healthcare, and there are people coming in for finding jobs, for employment opportunities, and this creates some problems in terms of living together. We also have a claim in our country, and we started to think about how we can actually create something beneficial out of these problems. And first of all, it was really hard to talk about the positive aspect of this whole process and how to get people to focus on the positive aspects. But in order to find opportunities in these times of crisis, we are trying for peace building and development, and in order to find a solution to migration crisis. Our biggest advantage was that the world had its eyes on Venezuela because of the crisis, of the conflicts there, and this was an advantage for us because it actually attracted the attention of the on a global context. And apart from the refugee or migration population, we also had an attention paid by the international actors on the citizens as well. And in terms of academia and international cooperation and also public sector, we had a lot of support. And in order to have this parallel link between the humanitarian aid and humanitarian work and the development, because, for example, there were some services provided on the border for sustainable development, and these kinds of services were for the refugee populations and the local populations there. And this was the main issue, the main focus was employment opportunities. And it was supported by a lot of the institutions, the international partners, and also the government, the local administrations as well. The businesses there were used by refugees, and these business places and offices were facilitated for the use of refugees. We had big opportunities there, and in the north of the Santander, for example, we had an unrecorded economy at a rate of 70%. So from that point to where we are today, and with the competition and the conflicts in the local economy, you can imagine how big that was. At this point, we had to implement a process that would include the producers, the manufacturers themselves. So all the manufactured goods were used to create a local market, and then we wanted to create an area for these local producers, also employing refugees, to help their goods to reach other international markets. And in order to respond to this influx of migration, there are a lot of coordination areas created by international organizations and the government, and this international cooperation partners sat at the table and tried to come up with good solutions, sustainable solutions to these problems. Again, humanitarian aids and how they should be realized, we wanted to come together as all the agencies and all the government levels to actually implement them, because planning them is something else and implementing is something else. So to finish my words, beyond the international endeavors, before everything, we want to remind everyone that we want to understand that we are human, we are all human, and we deserve more. Thank you very much.
Y que nos cuentes lo que está pasando en el país.
Thank you very much. From Colombia, you talked about how your country is dealing with the problems. You mentioned a few days earlier, you said that Colombia didn't close their doors to the refugees. Yes, exactly, because we have our doors open. Colombia is a transit country for people going to Chile, Peru, or Venezuela. I mean, Chile and Peru kind of closed their doors to this influx and to this flow. So the population in Colombia actually started to grow. But the people who first came were Venezuelans, and they came to our country. The people who came, they actually had the opportunity to live in other countries. But then the second wave came and the third wave came. The third wave actually didn't have the necessary qualifications to actually go to other countries and follow other opportunities in terms of employment or education, etc. So we had to increase our capacity in terms of socio-economic integration and education. So the third wave was actually a lot more challenging than everything for Colombia.
Thank you. First of all, I want to
Öncelikle ben
visit Colombia as part of a delegation and to see what has been the success stories, but also after the peace agreement, how can we not replicate that in Syria in terms of having a political peace that is not tied with some, grassroots peace that will maintain this peace in the long term. So thank you for sharing. Just a quick note, I'm not a mayor. I don't know why I'm on the mayor panel. I'm the head of a local organization that works with Syrian refugees in Lebanon and internally displaced inside Syria. And I think part of the things that I've learned throughout my studies, studying development, is that no one has all the solutions and no solution is replicable everywhere. But I'll try in these 6 minutes to speak a little bit about the experience of Lebanon dealing with Syrian refugees. I mean, as you are seeing now on television, Lebanon is a country that is, facing some instability. People are in the streets demanding for their basic rights in terms of service provisioning and to have a real state. So how does it work to achieve local development in a country, or in a country which is at the brink of collapse, but still hosting 800,000 Palestinian refugees and almost 2 million Syrian refugees. First of all, in order to achieve this kind of local development, you will need to have some sort of a unified political or policy framework. A policy framework that will be guiding the municipalities or the local governance structures, which unfortunately doesn't exist in Lebanon. Until today, Lebanon has not had a unified political or policy response to the refugee crisis. It depends very much on where you stand on the political spectrum, or there's also differences between what is written on paper, the unified policies, even if they exist in some sectors. There are differences between what's written on paper and the ability of the government to enforce those policies on the ground. So you are left at the mercy of whoever works at a specific institution or at a specific municipality, whether or not they will implement. So we don't have a unified national policy. We don't have a purposive policy that's responding to direct needs, as well as whether it's intended, it's not always done. So these are some of the challenges at the policy level. Why are these policies there? Are they because of human rights? Are they because of security concerns? Or are they because of maintaining a certain political power dynamic in Lebanon? The other thing that you need to achieve this local development is to have local governance structures, to look at what are the local governance structures and what is the role of these bodies. I mean, even with the best of intentions, I'm so happy to see there's quite a few mayors, there's quite a few head of municipalities here from Lebanon, and I think you have done a great job at choosing the successful models to be represented here at the forum, but unfortunately this model is not the same across Lebanon. The reason for that is, I mean, even with the best of intentions, municipalities are still operating within these larger structures, which are, host communities, living in poverty, high levels of nepotism and corruption in the state. Some ministries putting their hands on the whole of the funds. A lot of these funds don't even trickle down at municipality level, let alone at NGO level, like SAWA or other NGOs. I mean, the municipalities have been taking on a huge responsibility and the challenge of, lack of institutional funding, lack of governing policies, but also their need to govern between their host community and the refugee community, because at the end of the day, their constituencies are the host communities, not the refugee communities. And even in contexts where there is one unified policy framework and when there is one administrative framework governing, you still see very different governing models based on municipalities, and we are seeing that in the case of Turkey. Every municipality, every mayor has his own vision. In the case of Lebanon, it's very different across the region because every region has its own capacity, its own resources, and its own abilities to implement. So this is also due to the fact that Lebanon has 18 sects and very differing political parties across the board who have differing even political stand on the Syrian refugees. Some view them as terrorists that have escaped the benevolent dictator. Some of them view them as actually victims who have escaped a war. So even at that level, there is a very high tension. And this has led to very differing experiences of the communities we work with. So we cannot work with Syrian refugees the same way across Lebanon, because in some municipalities, the head of the municipality will impose mobility restrictions on Syrian refugees. In other municipalities, the head of municipalities will be very open to talking to the organizations, will be very able to facilitate conversations between the host community and the refugee community, etc. So at our organization, we try to always localize our response according to where we are working in Lebanon and what the communities need. We have to look at the different stakeholders when it comes to the interest groups, the political parties, the media, the municipality, as I mentioned. And so we have adopted an approach of looking at community capital. So we go into a community, or an area or a region, and then we look at what are the available local resources that are available for us, and who are the stakeholders, and through a participatory approach, what can we provide these stakeholders, and what can we get in return, and how we will be able to keep this very small, very sensitive balance happening. We try to maintain great relationship with the municipalities. We try to maintain a certain level of, it's a very difficult balance because you still want to maintain the legitimacy of your work on the ground. You still want to balance of not upsetting the authorities. You still want to keep good relationship with the municipality. You want to design programs that are inclusive of the host community, but also managing the expectation of municipalities, because sometimes donors, although they have a do no harm approach, sometimes they really do things that harm our relationship with the municipality by over-promising the municipality things through our organizations that we are not able to deliver, as well as ensuring that everyone has access to information and to funds. So we work really with the community, for the community. And when I use the word community, it's to say everybody in the community. It is the host community, the refugee community, not only Syrian refugees, also Palestinian, Iraqi, or other migrant communities that exist in that community. By looking at what are the skills available in that community and how can we put the people first, how can we put their experiences first, how can we put them central to our design process all the way from designing the program to implementing them. Are our programs dignifying for the people we are working with? Are they giving them self-determination? Are they giving them ownership over their own lives without stepping into any difficult territories with the municipality? So it's really a very complex ecosystem that we are trying to operate in. But maybe one thing that we really try to do is to keep the people always at the center. And I'm going to stop now because I'm out of time.
Wow, thanks for being so punctual. And just very quickly, remind me of the population of Lebanon. Is it 5 million people?
I mean, the last census in '74 was 4.5 million Lebanese, with today almost 2.5 if you count Palestinian refugees, the Syrian refugees. So it's really like a very big burden on Lebanon. It's the country with the highest refugees per capita in the world.
It's fascinating, Lebanon.
Yeah,
I mean, each country we're talking about here is fascinating, and especially right now, as you said, a country that is on the brink of collapse economically, and we're seeing the protests, and we talk about Lebanon nearly every day on TRT World. I hope we'll be speaking more in the Q&A or later, but for now, thank you very much indeed. And now I'd like to go to my home city, Istanbul, and bring in the mayor of Sultanbeyli, which is considered to be one of the models of refugee support in Turkey. And so we'll give the floor now to Hüseyin Keskin. Thank you very much.
Teşekkür ederim. Thank you very much. I am the last speaker of the last session. I will be trying to keep it short, and I don't want to bore you. Esteemed mayors and the representatives of international NGOs and dear participants, I salute you with respect. Sultanbeyli Municipality, and with my team, with the support of NGOs and foundations, we created the method, the model you mentioned. In terms of overcoming the problems and the non-coherence between the society and the refugees, we are trying to apply a new model. In Sultanbeyli, from 21 different countries, there are approximately 30,000 refugees. We are hosting over 30,000 refugees, most of which are Syrian refugees. So at this point, there is an uncertainty when these refugees first arrive at our district. And in our district, we had this idea of having an organized scheme and an organized method and model to accommodate these needs. And The basis of our foundation was that the community center, the first thing that separates our community center from other community centers is that we are actually applying everything that we do with a holistic approach. And we also try to save time and pave the road towards sustainability with the support of data and automation methods. And we are also communicating and collaborating with national and international funders and also NGOs. So it is our main objective to determine the needs and also, with the help of our teammates, accommodate the needs in the shortest period of time as soon as possible. Also, increasing the capacity is another objective for us, because for the sustainability it is very important. We also have a project called SKL. It is funded by Swedish local administration and municipality unions from Turkey. 3 of them are actually supporting this project, and a total of 12 pilot municipalities comprise these projects. And within the scope of this project, we are also in the scope of the project, and we created the migration main plan, and it is a very comprehensive plan from social aspect and from economic aspect to all the other problems. And we all tried to determine the needs, and we created the solution drafts, and then we determined our areas of activity where we can be effective. And next year, again under the scope of this project, we will be continuing to our work in realizing and implementing all aspects of this project. And we are also trying to share experiences in our workshops from different mayors and municipalities. Marmara and Çukurova region, they have a lot of pilot municipalities there. We shared our experiences with them, and within the scope of this project also there is a migration mayor's migration program, and this platform that we will create will have the contribution from the local administration and the perspective of the local administration in a more national and international aspect, and we will reflect on our good practices and our experiences. Also, with this approach towards the migration planning, we also increase the resilience with the RESLOC project. And in addition to all of these, our foundation, which we founded in 2014, we are providing services such as protection, physical treatment or health services, psychological consultancy and guidance, and physical treatment, women support centers. And these were some of the titles of our services that we provide within this project. And data and automation system is the basis of our works, and let me explain to you how. As the Sultanbeyli municipality, we have a web-based software that collects the data of the refugees, and based on this data that we have, we can actually better coordinate the humanitarian aid that we are trying to allocate in a just way. And this database actually helps with the coordination, and we also collected some social and demographic data with people that are working for us who know Arabic, and they are going out in the streets and they are talking to people, and they are actually collecting data on a one-on-one and face-to-face basis. In Sukhum, we have 22 modules, And 8 of these modules are actually collecting the data of families, and it includes information about people's ages and how they arrived in our country. And thanks to this system, web-based system, we can actually determine the needs, and we can also prevent the recurrence of, for example, if you are aiding a family or if you are providing humanitarian aid to a family, we are preventing unjust applications or implications in that sense. And with the developments, we are updating our website, and we are serving to all of the people who go to our website on 3 different languages, including Turkish, Arabic, and English. And with the Facebook account of our foundation, there are refugees that actually connect with us, and they have a healthier communication with us thanks to our Arabic translators as well. And also we have Telegram and WhatsApp applications as well. And we share some developments, and we collect some feedbacks, and we are actually directing the feedbacks and referring the people to related institutions and areas that can actually help them. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm skipping some of them. And also we had a project, a campaign explaining some of the misconceptions regarding the refugees, and on social media it was a really good project. Of course, there are some lacking points, such as budgets. We have some limitations. Of course, we cannot realize every project and every idea that we have. Of course, without the public support, we are trying to do the best that we can. Thank you very much for your patience. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you very much for listening to my speech, because it is harder to listen. Thank you very much.
Mayor of Sultanbeyli, and it's great to see the automation, the internet use that you've created there. And maybe the floor will have some questions about that. But I want to be very practical. Now is our discussion time. I have 2 questions on my mind. One is, what is the best thing that your city has done that others can learn from? And then, what have you learned at this conference that you can take home to your cities? So these are my 2 questions. We have 17 minutes, and then I'd like to open the floor to questions. So let's see if we can do it all in time, because it is the end of the day. I am very conscious about the people in the room and the museum visit and the gala dinner. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. What is the best thing that your city has done that others can learn from? And I'm going to put that question first of all to the mayor of the city of Sombor, Serbia, Dušanka.
Hvala, možda teško pitanje, s obzirom da se kod nas, kao što sam i rekla, izbeglice uglavnom nalaze u tranzitu i zaista teško možemo da im damo neko dugoročno rešenje kao što...
First of all, I would like to say we should create sustainable and durable solution in the first place. And first, those refugees and their children, we should include them in society. They should be integrated in the society. Of course, each integration starts with education. And as it starts with education, the most critical element is education. After education comes cultural differences. And those cultural differences should be taught, and we should teach them how to tolerate, because the ground root of violence is intolerance. How can we increase tolerance? Through education. If it comes to second question, I'll start with practical. As Mayor Hüseyin Bey explained, We should use technology, and by using technology, we can make a huge contribution. I fully support his view. I mentioned a network of municipalities. It's a platform rather than a network, and there are standards for that platform, and as per that standard, all refugees pass that standard and they are integrated to society. Excuse me, we had a relay from the Serbian booth, and this could interpret as far as we could understand. Thanks.
We have 10 more minutes left, not 17, so we're going to go extra fast and try to squeeze everything in and still leave questions for you guys. Okay, to Dalia now. What is an example that, a good example from your city that others can learn from?
Digamos, la mayor ganancia que ha tenido todo este proceso ha sido generar un trabajo en equipo entre los actores estratégicos.
It's a huge achievement, and together with the strategic actors, we had a teamwork in our city, and thanks to this teamwork, we could make the decisions and we could direct the attention to development. The currently available resources there could be mobilized. And additionally, through the resources through international cooperation and the currently available resources was important for this capacity building and addressing the needs of the people. And improving their lives through employment. And also going beyond the humanitarian assistance. Thank you very much. Thank you.
In the case of Lebanon, whether intentional or not, there's been some space for creative chaos to emerge. There's been some space for civil society organization to step up to the challenge. And I think the other thing is really the host community withstanding the test of hate speech, media hate speech, politician hate speech against the refugees, and still the Lebanese community welcoming refugees at the community level despite all of this pressure from the different stakeholders. I think this has been the highlight of the past years of work.
Something very special, it really is. And Mayor Hüseyin, what would you say is the one thing, the best thing that you could show other cities?
I will quote from academics. If you have a good team, you can have a good governance of migration. We established a software system and use of IT, and we had close contacts with international fund providers that made our center under 3 chapters: close cooperation with academics, a good IT center, and relations with donors and finance institutions. We learned from last week. We were together with Mehmet Duman, the Secretary General of UCL in South Africa, and on the way, I talked about it with Hülya Hanım. We were discussing women rights, and all the panel speakers were male. Can you imagine it? And in South Africa, we have seen, we are discussing the migrants, and if we were to have representatives of the migrants, if they could tell their experiences, their psychology, feelings, and opinions. In South Africa, I had a migrant next to me, and that speaker's speech made a valuable contribution to in Antep. And from these panelists and from our guests, of course, we have learned, and there are best practices of each city, and we will adopt them and we will try to implement it in our own city. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question. Dušanka, what have you learned at this conference that you would like to take home or could take home and implement?
I can say, for me, the most beneficial, the most fruitful is sharing of experiences. And in my last answer, I said it. For instance, as a practical example, using technology and facilitating sharing of information and experience through use of technology. so that we can establish a platform for sharing of experiences and information, so that we can offer a solution to the migrants and the refugees. Of course, this database is very interesting for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Aprendido en esta conferencia que podrías llevar de regreso a casa, a Colombia.
Bueno, yo creo que el mayor aprendizaje es
Here, what we learned here is this concept of migrant and migration, understanding it globally, but finding local solutions. The municipalities, the mayors are the authorities to address direct needs of people, we learned. And through integration, not just employment, but in education, in health, we have to take steps for facilitating social cohesion. Our advantage is we have a common language, and we never had a language barrier with the migrants and host community. Thank you.
What have you learned at this conference that you can take back to Lebanon?
I was trying to Google if we have any women head of municipalities in Lebanon. I'm not sure of the answer, but I think the presentation that Mrs. Fatima Shaheen did this morning was quite impressive, and the whole team in Gaziantep. I mean, first of all, I think women lead differently. It was very nice and refreshing to hear her speech, but also because I think the team that she has here has been able to really foster this model of success. So I think that's one thing I'll take with me, with a few things that Gaziantep can also learn from Lebanon that I also will still have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mayor Hüseyin, what is the one thing that you've learned from the conference that you would like to take back to Istanbul?
The previous speaker mentioned the Mayor Fatma Şahin. I would like to extend my thanks taking this opportunity. Gaziantep, Kilis, when compared to Istanbul, they have a more intense experience of migration in statistical terms. And we already have information about the activities conducted here, and we are following up their activities. And we will take their best practices to Sultanbeyli and try our best to implement it for the benefit of Sultanbeyli.
All right, how are we for time? 5, 3, any questions? No? Finish? 2 questions. 2 questions, okay. Who would like to ask the only 2 questions in the room? No pressure. No? Any questions? No. Oh, we do not have a show of hands. Okay, that means people would like to go home and eat and relax. Okay, I guess we'll have to draw it to a close here. Thank you all very much. Yeah, you've been absolutely fantastic. For me personally, to hear from Serbia, Colombia, Lebanon, and a great example from my own home city, Istanbul. Thank you very much indeed. Join me in thanking them, ladies and gentlemen.
Maria, thank you very much. A brilliant and dynamic panel and lots of practicality and sharing and not too many questions from the audience, but ça c'est la vie. Bon, alors, to finish the day, if you're going for the museum tour, you need to be on the bus very quickly. That's one.
That's
okay.
Me.
The second one is we will start tomorrow at 9:15, and I again repeat the plea, the urge, what's the word for it? Go and do it. Sign the Gaziantep Declaration and being a founding dignitary. I think we've had an inspiring day across the piece from the Mayor of Gaziantep this morning in terms of you need a budget. That's what I took away. You need a budget. Right through to the examples here, the inspiring use of data. I felt I was back in an econometrics class in 1983, but with beautiful graphs. But you learn a lot. So thank you to all of you. We hope you're joining us tomorrow and the gala dinner bus. Let's be there by 18:45. One final round of applause. Thank you very much.
Yay. Thank you so much. Fantastic.
Great job, Maria. Thank you.